Assalamu alaikum guys, this is Puya. In this tutorial we're going to talk about the standard data types. In the previous video we talked about numeric types, and at sequence data types part we talked about the strings. In this video we're going to talk about lists, and we'll see how to create a list, how to do the indexing and slicing. What does it mean that the list can be comprised of a mixture of objects, and what does it mean that the lists are mutable, and how we can use append, extend, and how we can remove items from our list. So let's begin. So how to create a list? To create a list, we need starting bracket, an ending bracket, and the items should be separated with a comma. As you can see here, we've got a simple list, which this is the starting bracket, this is the ending bracket. These are the values, Ali, Karim, Hamid, and they have been separated using commas. So let me run this. So this is a simple list. To count the number of the items inside the list, like other sequence data types, you can use len. And here len says it has three items, which first item, second item, and the third item. So that's it for how to create a list. So let's talk about indexing and slicing. Indexing and slicing is exactly like the one that we had for strings. So I encourage you to check out the video that I have uploaded about strings. I'll put the link in the description. So in this part, I'm not going to focus on all aspects of slicing, indexing, and slicing. These codes are just like a reminder. So the indexing starts at 0, like always, and here, what does it mean? It means that in variable names, I want the item which is at index 2. Okay, this is my variable names. The item which is at index 2 is index 0, index 1, index 2. So this returns Hamid. The negative numbers, the negative indexing is the same. If you want to access the last item, simply you can pass in -1, or you can, if you don't know the number of items inside this list, you can use len and minus it with 1 for the last item, or minus it with 2 for the one before the last one, and use this kind of indexing. Both is the same. It's kind of Python says, okay, instead of passing the len of the same index that you want to access the last item of it, just remove this part which you want to know the count. I'll do it for you. Okay, when we pass in -1, we simply say, okay, -1 from the end. Okay, 1 before. I'm talking about the last item. So this is recommended in Python to use this kind of indexing if you want to access the last item, or for the one before the last item, you can use -2. What about -4 in this case? For example, this is -1, this is -2, this is -3. There is no -4. Okay, there is no item for -4. If you want to access an index which is out of the range of your list, it returns an index error like this. And the slicing is the same. The starting index is included and the ending index is excluded like this. 1, 2, 3 will be is the slice that will be returned. Index 1 is Karim, and index 2 is included, but the index 3 is excluded. Actually, we don't have index 3, but no, it doesn't matter. Even if we had it, it would be excluded. Karim and Hamid. And we can do the stepping using another column, and you can pass in your step. As you can see, we say from 0 to 3, which means almost all, not almost, all or variable, hold the variable, all the items in the variable, just step through it with a stride of 2, okay? Which means Ali is picked and it will jump from the first one. Doesn't pick this one because the step is 2, okay? So Ali, then Hamid is picked and returned here. And this is a nice and handy way to reverse your list. It starts from the end. So let's talk about nested indexing. Nested indexing simply says if you have a list and in the list you can have other types of data, other types of items like a string in this case. Okay, as we know, we can have indexing over a string item. Okay, here names the item at index 1 is carrying, which is a string. Okay, so as we know, we can index over this string as well. So we can have nested indexing. Nested indexing, it means we can have several indexing passed in after our variable like this. This is exactly like this. For example, you take the item at index 1, you assign it to another variable, and you try to do the indexing on that variable, which I prefer this one. This is concise and easy to understand. So let's talk about dot index. Like those that we had in strings, we can get the index of our value. For example, here the value is, or the item is carrying, and I want to know at which index this carrying is. And simply name that index. You pass in the value, and it returns the index the carrying is in it. Let's check out the docstring. The docstring says return first index of value. If we had 2 or 3 careems, it wouldn't return index for the second or the third one. It would return just the first index of the input value. Okay, so if you try to get the index of a value which is not on the list, in your list, it returns a value error, which says simply it says the value you're looking for is not on the list. Okay, you made a mistake or something like that. So that's it for indexing and slicing. So let's talk about the fact that we can create lists which are comprised of mixture of different data types. For example, here is a list which is comprised of, this is an integer, this is another list, this is a string, this is a float, and this is Boolean. And it works fine. I mean, list can comprise of every data type. This is unlike strings. The strings can be comprised of just characters, and you cannot have a list inside of a string unless you change it to a string. And nested indexing is possible like this. For example, here I say in the mixed-up variable at index 1, which is this list, I want the last item. I want to get the last item, which is a string like this, yeah. And in that string, I want to access the character which relies at index 3, which is y. Index 1, index 0, 1, 2, 3, and it returns y. So nested indexing works fine with lists that are comprised of different data types. So let's talk about the fact that lists, unlike strings, are mutable. It means that you can modify your list. You can add new items to it. You can remove item from it, or you can change the value of items. So we'll see how we can modify lists. The first step is how we can add a new item. As you can see, using append method, we can add a new item to a list. And let's check the docstring. The append says append object to the end of the list. As you can see, we want I appended Rahim, and Rahim is appended to the end of the list. Okay, it comes to the end of the list. Another approach for modifying list is extend. You can extend your list with another list. For example, here you can extend your list with a list that contains Puya and Amir. Let me open the docstring. Extend list by appending elements from the iterable. When it says appending, we know that append actually appends the object to the end of the file. So extend simply says the iterable, which means an object that can be iterated over, which is a sequence type, which is like sequence type, will be appended. And when it says append, it means that it will be appended to the end of the list. So Puya and Amir will be appended, will show up after Rahim here. And as you can see, Puya and Amir are after Rahim. So using plus operation, plus sign between two lists, we can concatenate them like the one we had in the strings. It has the same effect of dot extend, but it does not modifies any of these two lists. Okay, it creates another list. Just this is the difference between these two, dot extend and plus. As you can see, I appended Puya and Amir after I concatenated Puya, this list, Puya and Amir, to names. As you can see, we have another Puya and Amir, but the names is not modified. It is the same as before, and it doesn't matter how many times I run this code. The output is the same because the names will not be modified. So here's a good question. What do you think that will be the output of this? We are appending a list to our list. Let me show you the docstring again. The docstring said this will append object to the end of the list. Okay, it says object, which means everything. You can append everything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be a list or a string or whatever. Whatever it is, it will be appended to the end of the list without being modified. So the list which contains Sarah and Mariam will be appended to the end of our list. Okay, as you can see, they have been appended just as they were, a list. And here is another way of extending. Let me show you the docstring again of this method. It says extend a list by appending elements from the iterable. Okay, I said iterables are like sequence types. So we know that a string is a sequence type, so we can extend a string we can extend our list with a string. Simply, it will take each character from this string and append it to the end of the list. As you can see, it iterates over this list, over this string, and append it to the end of the list, which I don't recommend it. It's like they're not recommended. I haven't seen such a code before, but just I wanted to illustrate the fact there's a difference between iterable and objects. I just going to leave this leave this code remain, but I don't recommend you guys to use it. I don't use it. I don't extend a string to my list like this. So, and to elaborate more on this docstring of .extend. Again, it says it should be iterable, and as we know from the first part of standard data types, an integer is not a sequence type, so it cannot be iterated over, or it's not iterable in another sense. So here it is. I lost the code. So if you run this, it says int object is not iterable. You cannot iterate over an integer, okay? But you can iterate over characters of a string. So it returns an error if you try to extend an integer to your list. So let's talk about how to insert a new item to a specific index. Consider we want to insert Vahid to insert Vahid to index 1. Let's see what will be the output. So we can talk about it. This is name before inserting, which is Ali, Karim, Hamid, blah blah blah, and this is names after inserting Vahid. As you can see, Vahid is inserted in index 1, and all the items or objects from this index are moved forward for one step because we just inserted one value on this index. And the docstring says insert object before index. It is going to insert this object before the item that used to come that came at this index. For example, Karim was at index 1, and Wahid is going to come out before it. As you can see, it is here before Karim. So how we can change the value of an item in a specific index? For example, we want to change the value of Ali with Kamyab or something like this, and simply change the value, remove the one at this index and replaces it with Kamyab. The same replacing can be done with slicing. For example, we want to replace a slice of items with another slice of items. Here, for example, from 0 to 1, and the ending index is excluded. This slice will be replaced with Parvane. So we will have Parvane, Karim, as we have here, Parvane, Karim, Hamid. This is how we can replace the slices in a list object. So the last section we'll talk about how to remove items. So in the last part, we're going to talk about how to remove items from our list. Here, using the del keyword, you can remove by index. For example, you say I want to remove index 0, which in this case is Parvane, will be removed, and the rest are here. Let me just print it like this, so they will be printed in a line. Okay, as you can see, Parvane is removed. If I run it for the second time, the Hamid will be removed because it is at index 0 right now. And if you try to remove a name, if you try to remove with a name of your value of your item, for example, here I want to remove by value. I pass in Puya. Puya was at index 0, 1, 2, 4, 5, and it simply removed it. If you pass in a value which is not in the list, it returns a value error. And the last method is that we will talk about is pop. And as you can see, pop in the comments, pop says it will remove and return item at given index. If you don't pass in the index, it will pop the last item. What is the last item here? It is A. It's going to remove A from the list, and it's going to return it. Okay, that's why when it returns something, I can assign it to another value. Okay, it returns a, so I assign it to removed value like this. As you can see, removed value. Let me do it like this. Value. Okay, it's going to remove y because a has been removed. As you can see, it says removed value is y, and the y has been removed from the names list. Or you can simply remove the whole variable using del without specifying any indexes. This will remove the whole variable. If you right now, if you try to access it like this, access names, it will return name error, which says name is not defined because we simply removed it. So that's it for today's video. Guys, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the videos with your friend, and follow me on GitHub as well. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.